Welcome to the first edition of MediaBeast, where we discuss everything that's going on in the world of magazines and print journalism and everything that's going on with the trade press and all of that sort of fun, gossipy stuff. So here with me is Joe Pompeo and Lucia Moses. Joe works for Capital New York. Lucia works for Adweek. Joe, what's your sort of favorite media story going this week?
Well, it's hard to say this is a favorite. It's actually sort of a sad story, but I've most closely been following what's happening with the Times-Picayune.
Yes, as we all have
in New Orleans. And as we all know, on May 24th, the news came out in the New York Times that the parent company of the Times-Picayune, which is a 175-year-old paper, huge national paper out of New Orleans, is going to be scaling back the print edition to 3 days a week, focusing more on digital and laying off a considerable amount of their editorial staff.
Focusing on digital, of course, is always the euphemism that companies use when they are just going to lay off a lot of journalists.
Right.
So, you know, one question that I think everybody has is they now become the largest. New Orleans now becomes the largest city,
largest metropolitan area without a daily newspaper.
Without a daily newspaper. What does that do you think? And do the protests that happened outside their offices, do they actually mean anything? Will they actually go anywhere?
Well, I think that, you know, Advance Publications, again, the parent company, has said, you know, this is not up for discussion. There's been groups that have come, community groups and business leaders who have come forward and said, you know, we'd love to explore, you know, finding investors and, you know, selling the paper and, you know, preserving the print edition 7 days a week. And Advance has said, you know, that's just, it's not happening.
Lucia, tell us what your pick this week is.
Well, I was very taken by the New York Times Sunday Magazine piece on Horace Mann that broke on Sunday. Well, actually broke on the web several days before, and I think within a couple of hours there were hundreds of comments online, and that story has continues to have legs.
Yes,
and there's been some developments lately.
Yes, and now it seems that the city is going to investigate, and they've set up tip lines. The question is really, you know, given the statute of limitations, what actually can be done, and that's not clear. I can't quite figure out if, you know, is this just about appearances, or is this going to be a real investigation? What was your sense of that?
The statute of limitations is up. I think at age when you
23,
reach 23, there's a point that you don't necessarily
most
feel
victims don't come forward. Well, and most victims don't,
especially not males. I think.
So they sort of go on with their lives, and maybe don't even feel as if they've been victimized. Yeah. And that's sort of a big part of the crime of this whole tragedy.
Last, of course, is the Rupert Murdoch saga in England, and you have David Cameron testifying this week. I mean, you know, there really was a long period where it seemed as if Murdoch basically controlled, you know, who was elected. Tracy Ullman once made a joke to me. She said, you know, in America, you have 6-month elections. In England, Rupert Murdoch just decides, you know. And do you think that's still going to be true when this is over?
It seems like people think that's already no longer true. He's lost his power there. He doesn't, you know, wield the influence he once did in being able to sway politics. So it's obviously a huge blow to his interests in British media.
At the same time, I think this tabloid culture is not limited to Murdoch and News Corp, and there are, you know, instances of other tabloids that are very powerful, that wield a lot of influence over the governmental system.
Yes. Last, let's just talk about, you know, one thing that you've got to pick for this week. Joe.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the Huffington Post just launched a new iPad magazine. The first issue, which is actually a preview issue, went up yesterday. It's in the iTunes and the Apple Store.
Yes.
And they're characterizing this as, you know, a classic Sunday read, something you can spend a lot of time with over the weekend. And I got a preview of it this week. It looks pretty slick and impressive. So it'll be interesting to see if they start getting people subscribing to it.
Got it.
Well, I think there's a great story out by Slate that kind of touches politics and the Mormon Church, and I think, you know, given the election we're in, everyone should be paying attention to. It's about gays in the Mormon Church and reconciling their sexuality with their beliefs, and being married and staying faithful while acknowledging that they're gay.
Perfect. That's it for MediaBeast.